Hello, everyone. Go ahead, Terry, take it away.
Everyone, you are all, can you hear me? You are all doing well. So this is the last in the session for me, the last of 6 sessions for getting booked locally. I have dropped in the chat my slide deck and a resource guide. So please feel free to grab that. Hopefully you're able to pull it down. And Jill, you may want to, a little bit halfway in as well, share them again. If you wanted to download them and upload them back. So what we are going to do, of course, when I present, it is always very interactive. Apologies for the all the stuff on the wall. I'm actually at a client site today, jumping in. So number one, I want to find out from any of you all, have you, since we've talked over the last couple of weeks, have you all had any success or anyone, either one, have a conversation with someone about setting up a workshop, being able to go out and do a conference, or whether it's a panel, or have you actually gotten something booked? So if you've moved the needle at all, or you've set up a conversation, you hadn't had the conversation yet, but if you've moved the needle at all, I would love to hear what you all are doing. And you can just come off of mute. So Vanya, I know you have, because I know you just spoke, I think, in Dallas, if I am correct. And not sure if you're able to come off mute. You may not be able to come off. That's all right.
Yes, hello. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Terry, I've been able to secure many speaking opportunities. Actually, I got started a little bit before, but then I was inspired with your techniques, and yes, I've been able to secure multiple speaking opportunities locally.
What do you think? I know you've got a number of things coming up. You're going to be in Houston around like the 14th, 15th, and 16th for an AI conference.
Yes.
And so what do you have coming up?
Yeah, so I just did a TEDx this weekend about AI. That was in Dallas. Then I have the Houston event, the AI Experience, 14th to the 16th, that you're invited to, I think. Then we also have I have a speaking opportunity with nonprofits in Latin America and in the US. And I gave a class on AI for the Latina Foundation. I have coming up this really amazing opportunity for the women in technology, which is a large community for over 100,000 members. As part of this is going to be for their annual summit globally, and it's in May. And I have a couple of things. I have an event in Arizona for franchises, and one in Mexico as well. Yeah.
Nice. And last thing, Sylvania, because again, it's not like you're new to kind of to speaking and doing that type of thing, but what type of advice would you have for, again, someone who's just getting started thinking about, maybe I do want to try to get out and do speaking engagements, whether it's at conferences, or if they don't feel like they're ready for a conference, kind of walk through what are some of the things that you think, again, based on your experience, that they should be doing or could be doing to just get started if they haven't done it before.
Yeah, I would say I would focus on getting out there, like checking any opportunities that might be available, either starting in where you live in your city, in your state, and contact these events, and complete a lot of applications. I would say that's kind of a good way to go about it, because the more you put yourself out there, the more chances to get selected, because if you don't raise your hand when they are looking for the speakers, they are not going to come to you. Well, they will come to you at some point, but not yet. And so I would say look for these opportunities and submit a lot of applications. Yes, that will be my advice.
Sylvania, thank you.
You're welcome, dear.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Let's see, have anything that they would like to share? Raji, I know you were going to be working on some folks in your area there in Chicago. Have you had a chance to start reaching out?
I've put my hat in the I put my name in the hat, I should say. I have made some significant contacts, but I've not heard anything concrete yet for my first true talk, I guess you could say. But probably by the next time we speak, I'll probably have something for you.
No problem. And one of the things too, I share with people, don't be afraid to, to have a follow up with them. If you haven't heard back in a certain period of time and, in a couple of weeks, circle back and reach back out. I just wanted to follow up to see if you all have any questions on being able to move forward with me to come to your event or to speak for you or do a training for you. Any? Mm-hmm.
I didn't follow you guys from the very beginning. Have you talked about like what to charge and how to charge and exactly what kind of like I guess syllabus I could have other than teaching prompts? Is there anything, have you covered things like that?
But not so much covered, and what I'll probably do is just put together either some information or I'll do a 7th session that will be private. Because I didn't want to kind of go into fee structure or how to think about fees since we're being live streamed. We want to kind of keep that because I've got a certain way that I personally kind of look at fees that I certainly don't mind sharing. Just would rather it not be where it's live streamed. So I'll actually get with Katie and see that maybe in 2 weeks put together another session that's just around like pricing. What are some of the, whether it's lead, quote unquote, lead magnets or leave behinds as well that you can do to get people to opt in after you do a session. So you can, again, collect those names and emails and things. So if you notice, like every time I do a training with you all, I develop some type of resource guide that went along with the training. That is a great way to capture the information from people. Again, have a lead magnet that once you did a talk, provide a QR code and say, hey, I've got a great resource guide that goes along with the training I did, but it goes into much more detail. And you will always have people kind of opting into that. And I've got a whole kind of strategy around the way I think about that as well. But I'll double check. I'll probably do like a 7th session and be able to go into more detail on that if that's all right, Raji.
Oh, sure. You said a private session. What is that? Is it with you one-on-one?
Because right now our session is being live streamed.
Oh, gotcha.
On Facebook and I think on again a number of and LinkedIn and things like that. So I don't want to publicly kind of talk about kind of fee structure because I want to be able to have a private conversation kind of with you all on that if that makes sense. Okay. So what we're gonna do here, let me jump in, let me share my screen as we start going through this particular week. And again, it is about going again from just having some conversations to getting paid engagements. And today again, it's going to be, we're going to have a back and forth conversation. Make sure any questions you have, please don't hesitate to ask those questions. So I was like, I don't know what kind of face I was over here grimacing, making. I've got one of my friends usually comes with me a lot of times when I do some kind of speaking or training. And I was like, I don't know what that picture was that you caught, but hey, I'm gonna throw it up here. So one of the issues that, some of the things that comes up in terms of why conversations stall, why people don't move forward in booking you. So number one, it's, there's an unclear recommendation in terms of why they should invite you into their space. And think about it, whether it is an organization, a company that you might want to come in and do, if it's a training or a talk during their normal, weekly staff meeting. Or it can be a monthly meeting for, a networking group or an organization, or it might be, for a conference. But you want to be very clear in what people receive from you coming in. So for example, with me, my thing is I make sure that non-tech business professionals, because that's my lane, that's who I'm going after, that I am coming in and showing them how to really be able to utilize AI as a thought partner. So they're no longer, and again, I explain it even further. So they're no longer just using AI for writing emails, for doing a kind of a social media post. They are really leveraging AI as a thought partner. And my promise is always, I don't care where someone is in their AI journey, whether they're brand new and they have never used a large language model before, or if they feel they're pretty seasoned and a pretty powerful user of AI, my promise is that in every session I do, people will walk away with at least 2 to 4 new strategies, new ideas, new way of thinking about AI that they hadn't been exposed to before. And it's things, and then the next piece of it is, and these are things that they can go back that same day and implement. Right now, so many people, again, AI is everywhere. AI speakers, quote unquote speakers, are everywhere. And the big differentiator for you is to make sure people walk away with something they can implement that day. If they are if they went and heard you and they just got like knowledge for having knowledge sake, and they didn't implement something in 24 hours, that is always my thing. And you will hear me when I'm doing training or I'm doing speaking, I give them direction. So remember, people want to be told what to do. So I am giving them direction of, okay, this strategy here, I want you later today. I want you to do this thing. I want you to use the dictate function, in whatever large language model you're using. This strategy here, I want you to do this within the next 7 days. But you're giving them things to do and you're telling them, write this down. That's what makes you an effective speaker, trainer, workshop facilitator. Again, give a clear recommendation of what you're going to provide to their group. And it has to be things that they can implement immediately. That's where you start getting called back time after time after time. Also I'll talk to Katie about doing a last private training so I can walk you all through truly like what my proposals look like. I developed a proposal GPT because it was just taking me, and it still takes me longer than necessary. So I've got to tweak some things, but where I could run an initial proposal. I have a lean proposal GPT is what it's called. I have really trained it on, look, here are kind of where my fee structures are. Here's the types of speaking that I do. And what I will always do is when I am having like a discovery call, say with an organization who wants me to come in, and let me back up. You may meet someone at a networking group and they're like, hey, we'd love to have you come speak to our organization. Don't just book an event and not have a discovery call about that event. Whether you've been invited to a conference whether you've been invited to a staff meeting, whether you've been invited to, again, the chamber meeting, or an industry organization, to do a speaking engagement, to do a talk. I don't care if it's free or if it's paid. You always, always, always have some type of discovery call with that organizer, because you want to be able to get information about, who's in the room. Is it mostly business owners? Are they career professionals? Are there certain industries? You want to find out from them. Have you heard them bring up things about AI? What is your group talking about, when it comes to AI? What are some of the big questions and concerns that come up? But you always want to have a discovery call, even if it's 15 minutes, so you can get information. You want to, if that call is virtual, of course, you want to use your note taker to record it. If that call is in person, you want to use some type of note taker on your phone to record it. Of course, let them know you're using it, to just kind of to take some notes, to be able to have those notes to refer back to, so that presentation is going to be tailored specifically for them. And then what I do is, in my custom GPT, I'll upload the conversation that I had. Again, I'll give some background on what I know about the organization, what the event is, and then I run it. And it will give me the record, and I'll tell it if I know up front, okay, it's a 90-minute workshop that I'm going to be doing. I'll put that, in there, or if it's a half a day, or if it's a 30-minute, just kind of an introduction that I get to do at a chamber meeting. I'll put that in there, and I wouldn't be charging for a 30-minute, introduction at a chamber meeting. And then it'll give me the proposal. And I have developed my proposal. So one of the things I would suggest to you all, and again, and I'll get into more detail in an upcoming kind of, again, private session with us. You want to, if you have no idea, well, how do I even build a proposal for a speaking engagement? So number one, you got access to AI. You can let AI know that, hey, I am new to doing speaking events and putting together proposals for workshops and speaking events and things like that. I need you to give me a proposal structure, suggest a proposal structure that, is not overwhelming and that will make people want to book me. And remember, at the end, you always, I used to say, ask me questions one at a time. Again, so it can ask you those questions to really give you the kind of the best output for when it's putting together the proposal. Instead of saying at the end of my prompts, and this is for any prompt, instead of saying, ask me questions one at a time, I have now moved it to saying, how many clarifying questions do you have to ask me? So I'm mentally prepared if it's just 2 questions or 20 questions, and then I'll go through and answer those questions. But you can build your own GPT to help you put together proposals. And I highly, highly recommend that, because again, you don't want to have to recreate the proposal over and over. I personally, and again, I'll go into it later, but I have a 2-step process. I really need to whittle it down to a 1-step process, because I have that lean GPT to do a lean proposal for me. And then I have a project where I put in all of my proposals. I keep track, because this is in Chat GPT, where I'll keep track of all of my proposals. And in that project, it kind of polishes the proposal and makes it a little bit better. Kind of puts a bow on it is how I call it. It takes it from lean out of the custom GPT to putting a bow on it. So and I am notorious for overthinking the proposal. So that's one of the things, again, we can talk about in a second, and in a 7th meeting. And then just delayed and awkward follow-up. And I am very guilty of delayed follow-up. I have had people who have asked me, after a week, I'll tell them, okay, I'll have the proposal to you next Friday. And I'm just so slammed and hadn't got a chance to do it. and didn't have the chance to let them know up front or let them know, hey, I am actually going to be next Monday instead of Friday before I get it to you. And they've had to follow up with me, which is not great. You know, it's not great for them to have to follow up to find out, hey, where are you in the proposal? But that's something else that's, you know, where the conversation stalls. When you're having, so first, any questions on kind of what we talked about there, kind of what stalls conversations and you being able to come in and do some type of speaking? Okay. So the call structure, because remember I said you always want to have some type of discovery call with whoever the organizer is or whoever's bringing you in. And again, this is stuff that is common sense. You just want to understand, and as I already said, you know, who's in the audience, what's the challenge, you know, what outcome do they want? And you can ask the organizer, you know, what outcome are people expecting? But you can set the tone for it. You can say, you know, what outcome are people expecting? Because what I normally provide, regardless of where anyone is on their AI journey, who's in attendance, whether they're brand new, never used it, or they're a seasoned AI user, I normally will provide when they walk away, they will have 2 to 4 new strategies, ways of thinking about AI that they can implement literally that day that's really going to move the needle in what AI can do for them in their business or in their career. So you can ask the question, but also give kind of what you're going to provide. You know, you're looking for, you know, for again, in terms of, you know, looking for insights, you're looking for when you're talking to them, because you may just have a conversation. They might say, hey, I'd love for you to come and talk to our group. And, you know, you set up a call and you don't know what, you know, what they're wanting. Are they wanting you to come in for, you know, during one of their normal meetings and you may have 45 minutes to talk or 30 minutes, or, you know, you don't know if they're actually open. They may need something that's going to be a paid engagement. That might be a 90-minute training or a 2-hour training. So those are the things you're finding out kind of in that call. One of the other things I'll share with you that I do is I try my hardest not just to have some type of one-off speaking engagement with an organization. Now, conference, yes, you know, it might be a one-off. You're just, you know, you're speaking one time for that conference. Of course, you're absolutely looking for people who, you know, attendees that are there that you can now go in and again, do training in their organizations, or they may be part of, you know, other organizations that you can, again, do training for that other industry association that they're in. But one of the things I am doing is, even if someone wants me to come in just for say, hey, Terry, we want you to come in and do a 90-minute training for our group, our business. Absolutely no problem. That's great. When I send a proposal, and I'm talking about this in the call structure, I'll let them know I'm going to send a proposal for what a 90-minute session looks like. And then I'm going to also send along with that, in that proposal, you're going to see what a 3 series looks like, a 3-session series looks like. So my point is, don't have it where you're just doing like a one-off. And like I said, conferences are a little bit different if you're doing like conference speaking, or if you're doing like a keynote or something like that. But if you're going into an industry association to do a workshop, or you're at the chamber or anything like that, tell them, here in the proposal, you're going to find, here is what my 90-minute session is, but I'm also going to send as well what it looks like if I come in to do a series, because more people, you know, would rather me come in to do a series of training so they can have that building upon that their teams are getting. So I waited far too long before I really implemented that, doing more series. And then, of course, again, just letting them know you're going to send a proposal. The other thing is, your job, and I have learned, now mind you, I have been doing, speaking engagements and training engagements since January of 2023, and have learned it's not for me to try to convince somebody that, I should be there. It is for me to give clear recommendations of why they should have me there. So you really have to think through, again, what is the takeaway for people? And you also, just like, when somebody is out doing a job search or they're on the dating scene or what have you, you got to be okay with rejection, as well. Don't be so tied up into the outcome of somebody saying, yes, come in. Because like with Sylvania, talking about, you want to put in as many applications as possible. And for some of you, you may not know what she meant when she said that, but a lot of, especially conferences, they are going to have a call for speakers. So a call for speakers, typically is going to, be on their website, or they'll have a landing page for it where you have to apply to be a speaker at their event. With that, one of the things that I will say is, because it's come up, I'm shocked at how often this has come up, is where organizations or events want you to pay them to be a speaker. Do not, I'm of the mind, do not do that. Do not pay to be a speaker. I would love to hear, Sylvania, if you're still available, kind of what is your, and I don't know if you've seen where it makes sense to do that, but have you seen where more events are, again, they want you to pay to be a speaker, and what's your thoughts on that? Are you still there, Sylvania? She may not be available. But again, my thought is don't pay to be a speaker. And when you're giving the proposal, again, give a best fit format. So again, that best fit format might be a 90-minute session, a 90-minute training. But remember I said you're going to add something else to it. Have an expanded option. Give them 2 options. Some people decide to give 3 options. It's gonna have to be what you feel like doing. I used to give 3. I've pulled it back now to just giving 2, because they're typically gonna pick one or the other. And be prepared if they tell you, I think this is on the next slide, I believe. Yep, here it is. If they're like, Terry, we'd love to have you, but we don't have the budget for that. Anybody out there speaking have already come across that, hey, we'd love to have you, but we just don't have the budget? Anyone? Because one of the things that I'll share with you is, instead of just, automatically knocking your price down, and you're going to start seeing, as you get out there doing talks, doing, speaking engagements, doing trainings, you are going to see, and you'll see kind of 2 sides of it. You'll see there's some, organizations that they'll say, okay, well, we just don't pay, anyone to come in, to come in and speak. And then you just make a decision. Hey, is that room worth me being in, where I'm willing to speak at no charge? Sometimes it is, because again, there's sometimes I will do something at no charge. Typically it's a conference, but for me to be in that room, it is very valuable to do. But don't rush to decrease your fee, because you absolutely have value. You want to understand, with what you bring in AI, especially when you show people that literally kind of the transformation that they can have with your knowledge, and showing them just a few things with the expertise that you have, you literally have the ability. And this was the mindset that I had to get in, as I was starting to do this, and I would see the results people were having afterwards, or they'd reach out to me afterwards. You literally are changing, have the ability to change the trajectory of somebody's business or somebody's career with what you are teaching them. You're not just coming in and teaching them how to do, yeah, just a few little things. It literally, when you have that knowledge to share with them, it can change the trajectory of everything in them. So it shouldn't be just cheap and pennies. That's for sure. But if they're like, okay, Terry, we can't have, we don't have the ability to meet that type of budget that you've got, that fee that you have, we'll see what you can add on first. And I'll give you a great example. There was an organization who wanted me to do an event, and they said, hey, Terry, if you would do it for this amount, like we're ready to go. We are ready to contract you. It was to speak to it was an association. It was to do a workshop for their association. And I said, no, I can't do it for that. I'd be traveling for, 3 hours. I have an autoimmune disease. So when I travel, if I'm traveling more, typically if it's 2 hours or more, I need to spend the night because I'm not going to do a turnaround. It's too much on me physically. And I said, so I also need hotel mileage, but this is what I'm looking at just for the base rate for me to come speak. And I said, let me send a proposal to you. And they were like, okay, we just don't know if we can do any more than that because this is, we've got a finite budget and we've got other speakers coming in. And I said, okay, let me send a proposal. But number one, I had a conversation with the person who was organizing it. I gave them a strategy. Even in our discovery call, I gave them a strategy using AI, talked to them about deep research and how he could use it professionally himself. And when I sent the proposal, that proposal was, again, it was for doing that it was, and actually it was only a 60-minute, it was for doing a 60-minute workshop. But what I added to it was, at no kind of additional cost, I added a virtual follow-up. That's why you'll see this virtual follow-up 2 to 3 weeks later. Because this one, the workshop I did was in person and it was over 3 hours away. I did offer a virtual follow-up. And that virtual follow-up was going to cover a secondary topic that I did not even touch in that first workshop. He received it and he said, Terry, I just have to find a funder who will help fund the additional amount you're asking for, but save the date, put the date on your calendar. Because he said, I'm going to find the funding, put the date on your calendar. So I put the date on my calendar, and then lo and behold, 2 or 3 weeks later, he said, hey, since we're going to have you down in this area, again, I drove, it was over a 3-hour drive. There's another city that's less than 30 minutes away. We've got a chapter in a group in that city. Can you send another proposal because we want to book you for that other chapter that's close by since you're already going to be here? I said, absolutely. But what won him over, where I didn't lose it, was I did this virtual follow-up. And I do this quite often for like in-person events when there's an issue kind of with the budget, or if I just want to try to eliminate that as much as possible, that, it may be a budgetary issue. I don't know for sure. I'll add on a complimentary virtual follow-up. These work tremendously. Any questions on kind of what you've heard there in terms of just not automatically knocking down your price?
Is the virtual follow-up, is that a Zoom call?
Yes, sir. Virtual follow-up is a Zoom call or whatever platform they may need it to be on, because some are going to be a Teams organization. But yes, it is a virtual, typically a 60-minute. Sometimes I'll do 90, but I mean, that's fine because I'm at home, especially when I did, like I said, the initial one. I do an initial one in person. That might be, an hour plus away. And I also always provide, when I do a workshop, I always provide a resource guide. Always. And that's my opt-in. I typically don't give it to everybody. They typically, again, at the end, I'll have a QR code, let them know, hey, I've got a great resource guide you are not going to want to miss out on. It covers some of the things we went over today, but it goes much, much deeper. You want to get it. That's how I'm getting individual attendees, again, in my ecosphere, is having this resource guide. Now, sometimes I don't do a QR code. So for example, I had a 3-series training for a community college. And with them, I mean, they just, with their faculty, well, they just automatically get it. They're not having to opt into anything. They just automatically get it. But it's usually when I'm doing something for whether it's a chamber or an economic development corporation or something like that, when individuals would need to opt in to continue kind of like following me and getting information from me, that's what I'll provide.
Yeah, can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the additional focus topic, is that taught in the initial, is that in person or is that during the follow-up?
So that's during the follow-up. So for example, with this organization I was just talking about that had booked me, again, it was 3 hours away, it was in person, they came back and wanted a second location. Well, before they even said anything about the second location, the way I had gotten them to agree with the fee that I was going to charge was, again, I said I would do an additional topic. Because this particular group, it was nonprofits. It was a nonprofit association. And I covered certain things in the primary workshop. It was, again, how nonprofit leaders can utilize AI, can kind of, and again, especially utilizing it as a thought partner, how that's their superpower when they know how to do it, to utilize it as a thought partner. And I said, let me, 2 to 3 weeks later, let me do a virtual, again, 60 to 90 minute training with you all, and it's specifically going to be around how to use AI to source grants and to help with the grant writing process. So again, completely different. I did not touch that at all in my in-person training with them. So it was something different, and it's virtual. I actually, as a matter of fact, have that coming up in 2 weeks. Does that make sense, Raji?
Yeah. And also your resource guide, is that digital or is that handouts? What is that?
It's digital. Yeah, I don't ever go anywhere with a handout. It is that resource guide, and it's for the end. It's not for them to use as we're going through. Like, so with you all, you see I uploaded the slide deck. I did it as a PDF, and then the resource guide for you all is kind of small. It's like a roadmap today. If you check it out in the chat, the PDF in the chat. What I do when I do a resource guide, when I'm presenting, is it is typically, more often than not, like a 12 to 15 page resource guide. I mean, and it is like the bomb resource guide. What I can do is I can upload an example or two in the community. When the replay of this is published, in our community, I'll add a couple of examples of the resource guides that I do, but I make sure they are premium. They have valuable information. It's not like just basic prompts. It's really kind of going through some thought process information as well that they need, but it's electronic. Any other questions kind of based off of this? And one other thing as well, you might want to even suggest, if they're like, oh, the budget's just, we don't have enough budget for that. One of the things you can do that a lot of people don't think of, you can ask, well, is there another organization that you might be able to partner with where you all can split the cost and be able to bring me in? And so I'll give you an example of who that works well for. So if you are like me, I am really doing a lot of work with economic EDCs, economic development corporations. If you're doing work in that area, and if the EDC says, hey, we just, we don't have the budget, I will let them know, hey, a good partner might be the Chamber of Commerce, your Chamber of Commerce in blah, blah, blah. Would you all be open to partnering on that? What if I do, and then I'll tell them, well, what if I do this? Can we schedule a call with you and the chamber executive director? Because since they don't know me from Adam, and I kind of make a joke, since they don't know me for Adam, hey, would you mind? Can we schedule a call, maybe, 15 to 30-minute call, get together, and I can kind of bring them up to speed in what I do and why you see value in me being here, and then just talk about how, again, you might be able to partner together for me to be able to impact even more people. So a lot of times, don't just let a no kind of stay a no. Try to see what other ways you might be able to have people partner and bring you in. Any other questions on that piece? And again, next week we'll go into, or not next week, in 2 weeks, like I said, I'll get with Katie and let her know about me doing a follow-up kind of private session, because so I can really show you, again, like I said, my proposals, so you can see what that looks like. One of the things I struggle with, again, I'm still, because this slide is made for me, is just kind of staying on top of the proposals. A great example is right now, I have 8 or 9 proposals that I need to get out. And for me, I don't do, and somebody asked me the other day, well, oh, Terry, are you doing, like the responding to RFPs? If you don't know what an RFP is, that's a request for a proposal. So a lot of times it might be, a government entity or something like that that'll put up an RFP, the city or the county or what have you, because they need to take bids on services and things. And I said, no, I said, I have never applied to an RFP. I said, all of my proposal requests are coming strictly from people who have either seen me in a training or they've been referred to me and they said, hey, Terry, we want to talk because we want you to come into our organization. And so that's what's like kept me crazy busy. But there's a whole, again, kind of proposal system that I want to be able to walk you through. And this is just you all can kind of take a look at this later. It's about being able to get you start having some type of momentum. I heard, and I'm trying to think, let me look at my phone to see if I wrote it down somewhere. It was something that was so poignant, and because I told myself, remember this. Hold on. I may not. Oh, I don't think I did, because it was an analogy that reminded me so much of the community. But it's about, again, just getting out there and trying it. I know, trust me, I know so many people are just, whether it's apprehensive, whether it's fearful, like I said, we covered earlier in the series, you feel you need to know more information. You just have to start having conversations. And even if those conversations begin with telling people, hey, I'm going to start doing AI training and doing AI workshops. I would love to just, talk to you for about 15 minutes about your company or your organization. I'm wanting to know, what are people saying about AI? Are they even talking about being trained? What do you think people need to be trained on? What type of information do you think, people need? You just want to have conversations. Again, in that first conversation, you are not trying to I go back to sales because I've been in sales for 25 years. You're not trying to close the deal, necessarily on the first conversation. You're trying to get enough information to make a recommendation to them and say, hey, based on what you're telling me that, your group is looking for, I think one of my 90-minute workshops would be great. And here's why. Again, you just need enough information to make a recommendation and then to send a proposal. It's steps in the process. And I think so many people are concerned or afraid about, well, if I put myself out there and they say no. Right? I'm telling you, it is a window of time that we've got. I personally think for me, I think it's about a 3 to 5 year window of time where if you're looking at doing training, the training aspect of it, AI literacy is like next to nothing here in the US. There's so much that needs to be taught with AI literacy. And think about it. AI is changing because how many of you, and drop a 1 in the chat if this is you, how many of you feel just like for yourself, when you're looking at AI stuff and, trying to learn and keep up, it is like you are being fed from a fire hose. Drop a 1 in the chat if you're like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to keep up. It's like I'm being fed with a fire hose. So if you feel that, well, what do you think people who aren't in, as my daughter calls it, the echo chamber, Mom, you and your chief AI officer echo chamber, nobody's talking about that stuff out here. Only y'all are talking about it. What do you think people out there feel? I mean, they are completely overwhelmed. So you've got a good run rate of time to be able to do, if you want to do training. Again, if you want to start doing speaking engagements and be on panels, be conference speakers, and that's another thing. Look, with these different conferences, you may feel, okay, no, Terry, I'm not ready yet to, like, say, lead a workshop at a conference, or I'm certainly not ready to be a keynote speaker. But a lot of these conferences have panel discussions. You probably could serve on be a panel speaker. So look at that type of thing. Something else I would share with you, if you're even trying to find events in your local area that you can speak at, set up, one of the things I did was set up a recurring task. And you can do it, again, whether you do it in ChatGPT or you do it in Perplexity or whatever you use, or if you want to set up an actual agent. I didn't do an agent yet. I just did a task. But to go out and look for speaking opportunities for you. So like I had set up, and I'll pull it up here in just a second, like the Perplexity. I had set it up and I told it that since I'm here in Texas, I said, I first want you to start like in my region. And I want you to look at live events, again, conferences, workshops that I can do. And I want you to look at those that have an open call for speakers. Again, where they are actively looking for speakers. Look at that first. That's like the top domino. Look at that first. After that, I want you to look throughout the state of Texas, because there's more than enough business just right here in Texas. I do want to do national, but I'm focusing on making sure right now that I am known in Texas. I said, the second layer is look for these live events, these conferences and opportunities to speak throughout the state of Texas. So that's the second tier I have it look for. The third thing I have it do is I said, now I want you to look for virtual summits, virtual conferences and things like that I could speak at. So that's kind of the third search it does. And then the fourth search it does is looking at like live events throughout the country. But I have it going here. Let me share that really, really quickly with you. Hold on. Just so you can see. And I hadn't looked at it in probably a couple of weeks because I've been so busy. But let me share just so you can see what that looks like. Hold on. Let me move all of this stuff out of the way, exit that. And Lord only knows what's gonna as I look at my perplexity history. So but let me try to get to one of the tasks. So for example, as well, like this is one of my tasks. This is for like for social media purposes, but it's like analyzing the week's most significant technology developments. But where is it for? Because I think it is monthly that I have. Here it is. So you see, I've got this regular search for open calls for speakers at conferences, summits, business events. And I've got it set up as a recurring task. Again, I kind of trained it into, like, here's what I'm looking for. So remember I said, focus on Texas first, and I gave it the parameters. And so now it has pulled up open, again, calls for speakers. Now this one obviously it's passed because it's already passed, but that's one of the things you can do as well. And you might even want to set something up that says, what are associations and different opportunities in my area, or give a geographic boundary if it's in the Chicagoland area. Where are some opportunities for me to speak that have like regular organizations and that have regular events that I could be a speaker at, and then have it be delivered to you once a month or something like that, if that makes sense. The last thing I'll share with you today is, as you start speaking, you also want to have the ability to have a little 10 or 15 minute something that you could talk about regarding, AI. And it's going to change because, AI, so stuff is changing so much. But our local here in Victoria, the Victoria Economic Development Corporation, they have a weekly meeting that has like a lot of company executives and things that come out to, because they're talking about economic development, typically on a large scale here in our area. And they have sponsored me since August to go into some of the outlying area and do monthly AI trainings. They asked me, hey, Terry, are you available to come to they call it's a weekly partnership meeting. Are you available to come, and do just a little bit, 15 minutes or so for our weekly partnership meeting? And I said, absolutely. And I actually just did that on Tuesday. And I wanted to just show you, and I'll show you just like 2 or 3 minutes of it. And this is just getting up there and being able to talk. Now, I had planned out, what I was going to talk about, but it's not using a slideshow. It is having a conversation with people. And I'll just pull it up off of my Facebook page. I had shared it. And if you wanted to see, it's like 13 minutes is what I talked. And if I'm connected to you on LinkedIn, you'll see it there on LinkedIn too. I didn't want to necessarily have to dig through LinkedIn for it, because I know I can get to it pretty quickly here. But I just wanted you to see about 2 or 3 minutes of it. Here it is right here. Hold on. Now, first, tell me, can you hear this? So again, you either love him or hate him. Okay. On the hate side, don't judge me by that. I'm a Crossroads girl. I am ingrained in AI. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you all about today is something most organizations are not prepared for, and that many times may not be doing. So how many of you are familiar with the term shadow AI? Have you heard shadow AI? Yes, I know you have. So shadow AI is when you got employees, your teams, your staff, they are using AI with or without your permission. Because the issue is most companies, most businesses, whether it's a small business, mid-market, enterprise level, have not put in place what's called an AI use policy. How many of you have for your organizations an AI use policy? So it's usually just a handful anytime I'm coming up to kind of talk to people. So with an AI use policy, if you don't have one in place and you are in leadership, you're a business owner, I am letting you know by the end of Q2, for sure, by the end of Q3, you have got to have a use policy in place. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna outline for your teams, for your employees, what types of things are allowed. So, and you're thinking, okay, really, why is that important? You probably have a social media policy. At work, you probably have some type of cell phone policy or something like that. The issue is your employees, your teams, they are already using AI, with or without that use policy. And if you have a use policy, they are still probably using it in a way you never intended them to do so. A couple of quick stats, and maybe a minute and a half. I want you to hear these stats because these are things as well you want to be talking about. I'm not going to be up here long, but I wanted to share just to prove the point, to make the point. So KPMG had a report that came out in August of 2025, and some numbers on it, pretty startling. So it had that 41% of all organizations, and again, that's from small, mid-market, enterprise, 41% have an AI use policy. So you're like, okay, 20 to 35% of small to mid-market organizations have a use policy. So you're like, okay, but listen to this. 44% of employees say they have used AI in ways that violate policy or guidelines. So I'm telling you, even with a use policy, they are using it in ways they know they shouldn't. Now think about it. If 44% are using it in ways they shouldn't because they have a policy that they can look at, what about the people, the organizations who don't have a policy in place? It's like the wild, wild west in some of the organizations. 58% have relied on AI output without evaluating its accuracy. I just share that so you start thinking there's going to be times you're going to have the ability to pretty quickly come up and talk about something. So a couple of things, and I'm going to be done in 90 seconds. Number one, start looking at different things happening in AI that you can give I call it a little blurb about, that you can just do, 5 minutes about. And you're going to start seeing, you go out to, business lunch or whatever, you can start talking about these things, start to build your credibility there in the marketplace, start to allow you to have some of these things, concepts roll off of your tongue. And then the second thing is then you can also be making, if you've got, 5 minutes or something to say, okay, pull up the cell phone and make a video and share it on social. Hey, I was just thinking about, or hey, I need to do that for this thing. Hey, I just wanted to share with you all 2 stats that I saw in the KPMG report, kind of that came out about AI in fall of 2025. It was very startling. Let me share these 2 stats with you and why it's so startling. And here's what I'm suggesting businesses need to do because of this statistic. So start sharing information. People start seeing you again, because I get booked a lot because people have seen me on social media. I'm very active on social media. So that's what I've got today. Again, I'm going to see if you've got questions. I'm going to talk to Katie to see if we could do one more session that's private. But any more questions based on what you've all kind of heard today or through the series?
I'd like you to touch up on your like social media, how you get exposure. That'd be great.
I want you to. I'll make sure to spend time on that with the next one. But if I'm not connected to you all on social, especially like on LinkedIn, Alex, are you able to pull my LinkedIn page? Or if not, here, I'll pull it.
Yeah, I sure can. You go ahead. I'll find it for you.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you'll see how how I come across. I am always sharing information, always sharing where I'm going to be speaking at, what events I'm doing. So people truly see me as, in our region, I am synonymous with, AI, and Terry does AI very, very well. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Let me come back over here. I'm gonna share just really, really quickly. And then I'm gonna get out of y'all's hair. But like with my LinkedIn page, and again, if you're not connected to me, please be sure to follow me. But what I do is, and I try to, every day I try to post. It doesn't always work, but I'm for sure trying to do, and I'm talking about me, not just sharing a post, but me actually um, posting information. So now this was about our networking group meeting here, but I shared that. I am always, here's another where I'm doing another speaking event. Like here's where I just did a speaking event. So I am always trying to share information. Here is where I'm talking, and it's not just about speaking events. It is about kind of my thoughts of what's happening in the AI space. But I am always here and trying to provide value. And even if you have something that's, doesn't get a whole lot of likes, don't even worry about that, because more people see you than you realize. And as you start coming up again on their feeds, they know, okay, all right, well, I know that Raji is AI because he's always coming up, on my feed for that. So, but I'll kind of talk to you about, the next time, like my social strategy, and it's all organic. I don't do anything paid, any kind of paid strategy or anything like that. But I always share like what I'm learning, because I'm still, we are always in a state of learning in AI, and I share what I learn. I share what I'm seeing out in the marketplace.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The way is here. Let me do this. Here, I'll put my email. But now, Alex,
Mhm.
is the chat, does that also go out too with the live stream, or no? It doesn't, right? I don't think
No,
so.
the chat doesn't get sent up, but like I send your resources, they're always posted under the replay. So
Here, so
anything that you want included with that, yeah.
no, but I am putting as well for those who are still here. Best way to reach me is by email, or feel free to text me. I'll see the text before email, and I'm like usually like crazy busy during the day, so it may not be until that evening or possibly the next day before I get back to you. But again, I'm here to be a resource. Absolutely here to be a resource, and I will also share once the information goes up for the replay. I have a couple of recent like trainings that I've done for like Better Business Bureau and SCORE or whatever. I'll share those as well, just so you can just kind of see in virtual trainings what my training kind of looks like and what that style looks like when I'm training an audience that's not kind of AI consultants. But I'm here to be a resource, open book. Anytime I can do anything, please don't hesitate to holler at me. But that is all
Terry,
that
I'm
I
gonna
had for
holler at
today.
you.
But that's all I had for today. Unless you have any other questions, that's all that I had.
Thank you so much, Terry.
You're
Before
welcome.
anyone goes, here is always our recommended, very helpful feedback survey. It's like 3 questions. Please fill that out if you can. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Jill and I swapped because I got my times wrong, but I'm so happy I was able to make it for the end of this. And thank you also very, very much. And Terry, you're amazing.
Y'all have a great week.
Take care, everybody.